has remained the backbone of Nigeria's economy since its discovery. Decades of seeking solutions to attract investors led to the creation of the Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority, OGFZA.
Before the authority was established, we already had a sister agency, the Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority, NEPZA. NEPZA was established by Acts of 1992, and then the focus then was on the export processing zones, and they had a jurisdiction that covered all of manufacturing, all of the sectors. And then in 1996, the federal government of Nigeria, in its wisdom, decided to create a different authority, the Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority, with a special focus and emphasis on oil and gas activities.
If the oil and gas free zone had not been created, I remember that prior to us being here, a lot of ship maintenance would go to, say, Port-Gentil, for example, in Gabon. So there are companies that today are involved in pipe fabrication and things like that. Those would not be here. We would most likely be importing finished pipes, and the amount of jobs lost between importing bare pipes to importing finished pipes is quite substantial. You would typically, as an oil-producing country, have an oil service center, and all our oil services were being imported. Everything was being, exported, shipped out. But now it's all in-house, and we're seeking to recreate the success we have here at ONE at these other locations that I previously mentioned.
The National Regulatory Agency is empowered by the country's Section 2 of the Oil and Gas Export Free Zone Act 8 of 1996 to oversee operations of oil and gas free zones across Nigeria.
Let me even explain what this concept of free zone is all about. It's a geographical enclave that is demarcated by law, where laws that operate in the customs territory. The customs territory technically is an area outside the free zone. And so laws are suspended, laws that operate in the country, the rest of the country. Some of those laws are suspended and they will not apply in the free zone. For example, laws on taxation. Because the whole idea is to demarcate an area where you can ensure that there's world-class infrastructure, and then you provide special incentives to drive operations, there's ease of doing business, approvals can be accelerated, the process of getting approvals from customs, from immigrations are all accelerated, and then if they have to bring in cargo, we provide structures to ensure that the cargoes are cleared expeditiously. Vessels that come in, there's a turnaround time of 24 hours. And so if the infrastructure in the rest of the country are broken down below standards, you can demarcate an area where you have world-class infrastructure and they come in and they know that everything is going to work. They don't have to run around looking for approvals from government agencies. It's a one-stop shop facility. And then they also know that they won't pay taxes, and they know they can repatriate 100% of their profits, 100% of their dividends. They're entitled to 100% ownership of the companies they set up within the free zone. This is the global standard. So you do that so that you can be competitive and you can attract foreign direct investments.
We are the agency of government under supervision of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, responsible for facilitating investments into the oil and gas free zones in Nigeria. Our purpose really is to use the free zone tool as a vehicle for accelerating economic growth and development in the nation. Primarily, we wish to increase the number of jobs that are available, create jobs, facilitate establishment of industries, increase technology transfer, especially with in areas where specialization in oil and gas is necessary in the country.
The first was the creation of the One Oil and Gas Free Zone Rivers State in 2001. That has since been followed by collaborations through public-private sector partnership in creating Brass Oil and Gas City, Bayelsa, Warri Oil and Gas Free Zone, the proposed Liberty Free Trade Zone, Ikotabasi, the Eco Support Free Zone, as well as the proposed Ibaka Oil and Gas Free Zone and others upcoming.
We are in various locations, and we're even working to establish other free zones in the country where the promoters meet the conditions set by the authority. Because essentially, since our mandate is to attract foreign direct investments, we can only do that using the vehicles of the free zones. So our strategy is to deepen the existing zones by attracting additional companies or establish new zones in other locations. So that way too, we're able to deepen the quantum of investment.
We provide certain incentives in different areas. So beyond the physical structure of the zone, beyond the fact that they would take into account the work-life balance and make sure all that is sorted out with regards to facilities available at the zones. The government would provide incentives, custom incentives, such as no Form M being required for importation. We would fast-track our customs procedure so that your goods wouldn't need to be delayed. The whole idea is to provide efficient services. We would ensure that there was no time limit on your cargoes that came into the zone. Your goods can be processed, manipulated whichever way you want, and then you actually have access to the Nigerian market. Everyone knows that the Nigerian market is a prime market within the African continent, and the idea is that if you locate here and you carry out your value addition services at our zones, you can access the Nigerian market as well as the other markets in the region. We don't require an export license, for example, for you to send your things out of the zone. So you could operate a situation where if you were operating not just in Nigeria but in other African countries, you could use Nigeria as your base, and essentially there wouldn't be those limits because you're still seen as being in a foreign territory.
All free zones are targeted at developing logistic and support base for the oil and gas industry and attracting foreign direct investments into Nigeria.
Of course, the reason for setting up free zones is to attract foreign direct investment and also to create employment and then bring about transfer of skills to Nigerians and then create wealth in the society, the communities in which they are located. That, to a large extent, has been achieved. I can remember at the beginning, some companies in the zone, licensees, used to bring in about 20 expatriates to manage their facilities for them. But now, in most of them, you have just one or two. The other jobs have been taken over by Nigerians. To that extent, transfer of skill is a success. Now, creation of wealth, if you go around any of the free zones, particularly the one at One, if you had a picture of what the community was like before, like 10 years ago, and what it is now, you know that it has experienced some explosion in terms of wealth within the society. Because you see hotels, you see schools, you see companies setting up all around the free zone. It was not like that before.
Armed with a vision to be the first government agency responsible for promoting and sustaining investments, and a mission to engender public-private investments in Nigeria's oil and gas free zones, the OGFZA maintains it is equipped and poised to execute its mandate, which includes approving and regulating the activities of oil and gas free zones in the country, ensuring spread of incentives to investors, and disseminating timely information to fast-track investment decisions.
We also play the role of a regulator to ensure that the operators within the free zone comply with the laws and regulations. And then we also have a duty to ensure that there's a level playing field for all of those who operate within our free zones. Because indeed, a free zone is like a country within a country. In some of the free zones around the world, you will need a visa to have access into the free zones.
Since the establishment of the zone, the Nigerian Custom takes in more revenue. The Nigerian Ports Authority takes in more revenue. We also have that advantage where because we've allowed you not to have a quota system, you can basically bring in who you want to bring in, and at the end of the day, you find out that training a Nigerian is even cheaper than keeping an expert in the company, because the Nigerian will literally learn the job in very good time, very trainable people, and we have a large labor market, and obviously the cost of labor is not as expensive as in other countries, so there is that advantage.
Our record certainly will speak for itself because from inception we've attracted over $20 billion worth of investments. We've attracted over 200 companies from 45 countries. So you can also talk about the strong international dimension, strong global presence in the free zone.
From its initial oil and gas focus, the OGFZA has since extended its incentives beyond oil, Nigeria's major natural resource, to attracting investors across different sectors of the economy.